Welcome to Allen Avenue Unitarian Universalist Church's online worship. My name is Ann Packard and my pronouns are she and hers. I serve as a member of the Board of Trustees. We are a freely gathered, open, welcoming community supported by your contributions, which can be made with the donate button on our website by going to our Breeze program if you are a member, or by mailing your check to 524 Allen Avenue, Portland, Maine. Please note if your donation is a pledge or a gift to our Share the Plate. The Share the Plate recipient for January is the Portland Area Villages, whose mission is to provide support and empower seniors who wish to remain living in their homes as long as possible. Volunteers provide services, social connection, and activities for members. You are invited to join us today at 10:45 a.m. for our congregational conversation and coffee hour. Our coffee hour Zoom link can be found on our website. To learn more about Allen Avenue Unitarian Universalist Church, please go to our website at A2U2.org.
Our call to worship words are those of the Reverend Gretchen Haley. It starts here in this moment, in this breath you feel rising in your chest, this beat between us, the healing, the hunger, the hope, the courage, the calling, the commitment, the drawing out of a new day. It begins now in the imagination, in this story we weave together, in this song we sing, in this prayer we bring into being from our hearts to our lips, on to our life, our shared life. It starts here with praise and thanksgiving, forgiveness, and this humble, centering confession that we could be wrong. This promise that we make to keep learning, to keep trying, to keep our sense of humor, to keep close this knowing that we are all in this together. Come, let us begin. Come, let us worship together.
Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus hodie, Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus hodie, Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus hodie, Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus hodie, hodie. Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus hodie, Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus hodie,
Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus hodie, Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus hodie,
Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus hodie, Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus hodie, hodie.
Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus hodie, hodie.
Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus, Gaudeamus hodie, hodie.
Our chalice lighting words are those of the Reverend Rebecca Savage. We light our flaming chalice as a beloved people, united in love and thirsting for restorative justice. May it melt away the tethers that uphold whiteness in our midst. May it spark in us a spirit of humility. May it ignite in us radical love that transforms our energy into purposeful action. This, a chalice of audacious hope. This chalice shines a light on our shared past, signaling our intention to listen deeply, reflect wisely, and move boldly toward our highest ideals.
sing awake the light, and softly serenade the stars, ever dancing circles in the night. May your life be as a song, resounding with the dawn, to sing awake the light, and softly serenade the stars, resounding with the dawn, to sing awake the light, and softly serenade the stars, resounding with the dawn, to sing awake the light, and softly with the stars, to sing awake the light, and softly serenade to sing. May your life be as a song, resounding with the dawn, to sing awake the light, and softly serenade the stars, ever dancing circles in the night.
Imagination is one of humanity's greatest gifts. It is also one of our greatest curses. Our ability to imagine has created vehicles that can drive themselves or take us to space, has led to the development of virtual reality, to the creation of art, music, and stories that encourage us toward understanding and acceptance of one another. Our ability to imagine has also created vehicles designed to drive us apart, to destroy life and the spaces that we have created, to the development of different realities and the creation of art and story that encourages us toward accepting those we already understand. Given this, imagination is also neutral, a tool to be used in our relationships. What do you imagine about those you understand? What do you imagine about those you don't understand? How we answer those questions guides our actions. In the words of the Reverend Dr. Rebecca Parker, your gifts, whatever you discover them to be, can be used to bless or curse the world. Choose to bless the world.
Even though we're far apart, I still invite you to sing together on this song. Bright Morning Star, with some new words and perhaps an unfamiliar melody. I'll sing it once through and then we'll try it together. Bright morning star, rise, and bright morning star, rise, and bright morning star, rise, and day is breaking in my soul. Let's try that. Bright morning star, rise, and bright morning star, rise, and bright morning star, rise, and day is breaking in my soul. Rise up from morning slumber, rise up from morning slumber, rise up from morning slumber. Day is breaking in my soul. Rise up and hear your calling, rise up and hear your calling, rise up and hear your calling. Day is breaking in my soul. Bright morning star, rise, and bright morning star, rise, and bright morning star, rise, and day is breaking in my soul. Oh, lift your voice to heaven, oh, lift your voice to heaven, oh, lift your voice to heaven. Day is breaking in my soul. We'll build this faith together, we'll build this faith together, we'll build this faith together. Day is breaking in my soul. Bright morning star, rise, and bright morning star, rise, and bright morning star, rise, and day is breaking in my soul. Day is breaking in my soul. Day is breaking. breaking in my soul.
I invite you into the spirit of prayer or meditation, as is your practice, by the words of the Reverend William Sinkford, past president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, and they are titled, Only Begun. Spirit of life and love, dear God of all nations, there is so much work to do. We have only begun to imagine justice and mercy. Help us hold fast to our vision of what can be. May we see the hope in our history and find the courage and the voice to work for that constant rebirth of freedom and justice. That is our dream. Amen.
Listen, listen, white people. There were 1,000 pleas written on a single brick that crashed into the glass that shattered not at the single point of impact, but throughout the structure that supported the pain. There were chants that echoed off of buildings for years, but weren't heard in the echo chamber in buildings where only some people are given a chance. There were cries of parents who lost children and children who lost their parents as the chain that shackles Africa to America remains unbroken. The new links surround the prisons. There were prayers sung and songs prayed at candlelight vigils where the church was not a building, but the gathered body of everyone in mourning for a dawn of justice never breaking. Listen. Listen with your whole body until your heart breaks for every body. Listen.
I invite you to hear these words of the Reverend Teresa Soto from their book, Spilling the Light. Can we develop the skill of remembering the future? Can we commit to build the community that will extend into a time that we only know by memory because it will outlast us? Memorize the compass points of the day yet to come, the truth, the love, the fire, the endless yes on the horizon. Shake the scales from your imagination. Reach, stretch, rise. There is no more time for pretending that everything can be all right without your care, without your attention. You can mourn, grief being more real at times than the promise of the sunrise, more real than the peace of the moon that by inconstant silver turns disappears. And yet, while we mourn changes, losses, deceptions, and betrayals, beneath the ash we find ember. We weep, and then we have learned from labor movements, we organize Remember the day toward which we gather, the tomorrow toward which we advance. It is with your actions today that you engage that muscle memory, that sense of smell, the ragged velvet feel of a day that you have never lived. It is also your day. Remember it well. Now, please join in singing, Wake Now My Senses.
Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in all. Keep with a web of creation your vow. Giving, receiving as love shows us how. Wake now my reason, reach out to the new. Join with each pilgrim who quests for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Suffer thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Wake now my conscience, with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race. Wake now my vision of ministry clear. Brighten my pathway with radiance here. Mingle my calling with all who will share. Work toward a planet transformed by our care.
It starts here and here, a different reality. A reality not limited by the idea that our intentions match our impact. Envisioning a different reality starts where we are, now, in this congregation and community and nation. The social justice work this congregation has done over the years is formidable. And during next week's service, you'll hear from some of the people who have done that work in the past, some people who are imagining and envisioning that work for the future. It's one of the aspects of Allen Avenue Unitarian Universalist Church that attracted me. Our ministries were a great match in that way. Just a few years ago, Miguel de la Torre, professor of social ethics at Iliff School of Theology in Colorado, spoke at the Revolutionary Love Conference in New York. He relayed that story, which might be familiar to many of us, about the boy walking with his grandfather on the beach after a storm, and there are thousands of starfish on the sand. And the boy takes one and he throws it back into the ocean. His grandfather, who's a little stodgy and grouchy, growls at him, "What difference can you make? There's just one of you and thousands of the starfish." And the boy picks up another one from the sand and he gently carries it over to the edge of the water and he throws that one into the ocean and he says to his grandfather, "I made a difference to that one." In the past, this story has warmed my heart as I thought how focused that boy was on saving that one starfish with that single act. De la Torre that day asked us, though, to consider the stench of the other dying fish on the sand, refocusing our attention to the pain, loss, death, and devastation caused by missing the bigger systemic picture. Just how we move from this individual idea requires envisioning a new reality. We have so many opportunities to unpack and be surprised by letting go of the current reality of how things function. At this liminal space in the life of A2U2, we are beginning new ways and visiting some precious older ways with new twists. The membership committee is just one example of this. They are envisioning a new reality, creating coordinators for different aspects of welcome, inviting new information from friends and members, and leaving room for flexibility. How we welcome people goes beyond the invitation for them to participate in how things are. Welcoming people is the creation of culture where change is available, collaboration is present, and creativity is welcome. And when we envision a reality greater than any one program of the church, we have an opportunity to use a lens that helps us unpack the ways our congregation has been steeped in white supremacy. In 2005, David Foster Wallace addressed the graduating class at Kenyon College with a speech that is now one of his most read pieces. In it, he argues against the unconscious, the default setting. He begins with a parable. There are these two young fish swimming along, and they happen to meet an older fish along the way. The older fish nods at them and says, "Hey, good morning. How's the water?" The two young ones continue swimming on in the water. And after a while, eventually they slow down and they look at each other and they say, "What is water?" What is the water we're swimming in? As a congregation, how do we understand ourselves? Are we as a congregation friendly and easy to get to know, or do we take a little warming up to? How do we engage new members? Come and join us in our way, or come and join in and transform the way that we are? Where does formal and informal authority exist in our congregation? Part of knowing ourselves is developing an accurate picture of our strengths and our limitations. Part of envisioning a new reality is coming to terms with the reality we currently swim in. In our congregation exists an opportunity to continue interrogating our cultural functioning and our identity. If we don't understand ourselves, we cannot begin to transform into a system that is anti-racist and anti-oppressive. Over the last 20 years, I've had the opportunity to visit several states in my role as a beyond categorical thinking facilitator for the UUA. I've been to congregations with 500 plus members in Virginia, smaller congregations in Michigan, and every size in between. Every congregation is different. Sometimes when I ask about the culture of a congregation, I see this blank gaze staring back at me from the crowd. It's hard to see our own ways of doing things. We might just say, it just is. And isn't that another way of saying, well, our way is just normal? And what a bill of goods we've bought if we believe that. To assume that there is just a way of doing something, of doing anything in congregational life, is false. There are definitely ways to recognize our opportunities to envision a different reality. They come in the everyday functioning of our congregational life together. In those moments during a committee meeting, board meeting, annual meeting, when we have become so invested in a particular outcome. And just take a minute to think of something that you really wanted. What did it feel like when another opinion pops up? When it just stops the process in some ways, but not really. It just continues enriching the process of discerning what ways are possible. But it's not always comfortable. And we are sometimes pressed to go, oh, I'm going to be curious about how that idea takes us forward. It's hard sometimes to set down our investments in the way things are, particularly if we have privilege that comes out of it. Curiosity, wonder, intention, and observation create space. They create an opportunity for us to envision a different kind of way of being. Imagination, according to Gloria Azaldu, says, imagination offers resolutions out of the conflict by dreaming alternative ways of imagining, feeling, thinking. For positive social change to happen, we need to envision a different reality, dream new blueprints, formulate new strategies. The Reverend Sean Dennison, in his 2015 Berry Street essay, Mission Impossible, Why Failure is Not an Option, describes the risk of leaving the familiar. What he means by failure is not an option is not that ministers, Unitarian, Universalist, or humans cannot or shouldn't fail. When Dennison says failure is not an option, he means that we cannot help but fail. If our mission is big enough, we will fail. It's not an option, it's inevitable. Dennison encourages all of us to plan for failure because we will and because we already have. The trick, he says, is to free ourselves from the fear of failure so that we are no longer stuck staying small, keeping to the safe, familiar, and known path. This congregation left its original path, the one that included a small group of people, of dedicated people who all knew each other, met in a building on Allen Avenue that did not have room enough for RE space, so the children met out in the shed. This congregation left its original path when it decided to be more welcoming and accessible by redoing the parking lot. You each bring your memories just as those from those blended congregations that created this current congregation did. Personal memories that sustain us and inspire us, connecting us to something larger than just our own individual selves. Our congregation is centered around our Unitarian Universalist faith. From there, we're strengthened by the ways this faith leads us to live our lives. It grounds us in our connection with each other. It reminds us that within our diversity are opportunities that we cannot imagine today. Insoo Kimberg, one of the founders of solution-focused therapy, along with Yvonne Dolan, trauma specialist, developed frameworks to help folks move forward in their lives. They developed a way of moving through trauma and failures. In my previous career as a social worker, I had a greeting letter that I would send to new folks before they came in, and it said, "The focus of my practice is to help people discover and rediscover their strengths." I think it's the framework that helped sustain me in a 30-year social work career. One strategy that Dolan developed is called a letter from the future. Imagining that you are writing to someone close to you from the standpoint of the future, maybe 5, 10, even 20 years from now. The task at hand is then to write how things are in your life from that perspective. Perhaps from our community's perspective, perhaps from a world perspective. What is the framework of possibility that we imagine? It invites us to remove some of our self-imposed limitations. The fruit of this exercise is not only the opportunity to bring forward our memories of strengths and learnings from our failures, but to ground ourselves in imagining the future so that we can live into our lives our faith, our communities in ways that are undoing these systems of oppression. Our faith encourages us and sustains us to live into failure, to grow beyond what we can imagine today, and to take risks for those who are already here waiting for a different kind of system and for those yet to join us. Adrienne Marie Brown notes in her book, Emergent Strategy, that we are in an imagination battle. Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown, Rashina McBride, and so many others are dead because in some white imagination, they were dangerous. And that imagination is so respected that those who kill based on imagined, radicalized fear are rarely held accountable. Brown continues to explain, imagination is one of the spoils of colonization, which in many ways is claiming who gets to imagine the future. For any given geography, losing our imagination is a symptom of trauma. Closed quote. Racism in our country, our community, and our congregation and association is trauma. White supremacy is trauma. It's trauma in the fabric of our beloved communities. The work that the Unitarian Universalist Commission on Institutional Change, Widening the Circle, invites us into is one for some of us that stretches our imaginations beyond the familiar. To quote Star Trek, we are invited to go where some of us have not been before. Envisioning a new reality recognizes that even our UU communities are not the safe havens some of us believe them to be. It's not an either-or endeavor to envision a different reality. We can and are called to the work to change our own systems while continuing to work and engage in the community at large. Among the lamentations and learnings, the assembled Black folks, Indigenous folks, and people of color identified during a gathering convened by the Unitarian Universalist Association in Atlanta in 2017 were these. Addressing the perennial problem of race in Unitarian Universalism is not broadly seen as a theological mandate. There are no shared accountability structures and processes in place to hold people accountable for the continued harming of Black people, Indigenous people, and people of color among us. Our faith seems to have no room for repentance and saying when we have failed. These are just a few of the lamentations shared that day. It has been said that all systems are perfectly designed to accomplish the results they get. We must recognize that deconstructing systems of oppression and domination are the labors of love. Connect us to justice and connects us to our aspirations in our Unitarian Universalist faith.
We would be one as now we join in singing our hymn of love to pledge ourselves anew. unity. We would be one in building for tomorrow a nobler world than we have known today. We would be one in searching for that meaning which binds our hearts and points us on our way. As one we pledge ourselves to greater service, with love and justice strive to make us free.
I share these benediction words from Enfleshed, which I have adapted. As we face together the challenges and possibilities of this era, may we remember love is attentive, not avoidant, patient but not passive. It is biased toward justice, urging and luring and drawing all life toward liberation. Love will be known through those that practice care, manifest courage, and move us honestly and humbly together toward freedom. May it be so among us.